Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to Playing Above the Line. I'm Alan, and I cannot tell you how excited I am about today's episode. My guest today is Kay Guess, and you guys have heard me talk about her before on a couple of shows at least, but she is currently, at least for the next few months anyway, a professor of accounting at the Brock School of Business at Samford University. But more importantly, she is my mentor and dear friend. And so, Dr. Guess, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Alan. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So now let's just start from kind of the beginning, really for my benefit too. So you went to undergrad at Baylor, and then you got your master's at Auburn, and then your PhD at North Texas. So did you always know that you wanted to be an accounting professor? How did that evolve, or when did you first realize that's something that you wanted to do?
Well, it was not planned, as many things in our life are. They happen due to circumstances and life situations that come our way. I have two daughters. Mm-hmm. One is presently deceased, and so she's in heaven. And I have one that is living in Florida right now, and she is a nurse practitioner in about 5 different fields, which I don't know how she keeps up with all the continuing education, but that's not my problem. And she is kind of like her mom in the fact that she's kind of a gypsy in her soul type of person. So she is here a while and there a while. One of her biggest adventures was to go to Alaska for 4 years. So that was a different life up there than what you have in the lower 48. But anyway, she's back in Florida now. And as my girls grew up, they started school in a small town. And for my oldest child, that was not a problem. For my youngest child, it was a huge problem because she needed a different type of educational setting than their traditional school is, I guess. She'd rather been at home playing with her dolls than going to the classroom.
Right.
So anyway, as the girls grew, my first teaching experience, Alan, you don't know about, which is kind of funny. My husband and I had made the decision. He was a pharmacist, and we had our own business. And we had made the conscious decision that I would be at home during the early years of our children's lives until they went to school. Well, our daughter got into kindergarten, and it was private kindergarten. And lo and behold, the teacher got sick. And she said, "We need somebody to teach this fall until Christmas or until Thanksgiving." And I got nominated for the job, and I'm going, "Oh, no, I don't want to teach children. I just don't want to do this." But I did, and I will tell you, I spent more time prepping for that kindergarten class than I do for a college class. It was absolutely unbelievable. But the greatest accomplishment for the students and the parents in that class was I taught the students to memorize poetry. So when we had, I don't remember, Halloween, I think it was, and they were all dressed up and parents came, and they stood up and quoted poetry to their parents, and their parents were just blown away. They said, "How in the world? We never heard them do this at home. So how did you do this in the short period of time?" We had half-day classes. And I said, "I don't know." We just did. That's all I know. So that was the beginning of my teaching. And then, of course, I went back to work. But as life would have it, things progressed in such a way that my youngest daughter was very ill. And consequently, when she got actually old enough to, in high school, we began having some severe health issues with her. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to make a career change. So I decided I would teach. And the reason was I thought, well, I can, I have a much more flexible schedule and I can have more time to take care of her and her needs. And so that's what I did. And it just happened. But I had a great mentor in the PhD program at the University of North Texas, and that was Dr. Ted Coe, my department chair. And he said, he just sort of took me under his wing and mentored me through the process of both the PhD program. And he gave me the great opportunity. I taught full time while I was in the program, which is very unusual to teach the course load that I taught. And I even taught MBA students, which was also very unusual. But he said, Kay, you need the experience while I'm here, So he was been a great friend and mentor. He's now passed away, but during those early years, it was, and I think that's a key thing in life, Alan. If you have a good mentor as you're progressing through your professional life. And the other thing that God gave me the great ability to do was, and you don't really think about this, and that is to segregate your life. I could separate my school life and my professional life from my home life. And by doing that, I could totally concentrate. I was an avid long distance runner for years, never competed. I don't want to compete. That is not my thing in life. Competing isn't. But so I get up at 4 a.m. and go run. And, people say, why? I said, well, nobody's out at 4 a.m. I got news for you.
Nobody's saying anyway, right?
Nobody is going to run over me. Because nobody else is up. And it gave me a great release of stress. PhD programs are extremely, extremely stressful. And but through this whole process and through watching my daughters go through college, I learned from them that students need something that we don't give them, which really handicaps them in growing up in life. And that is, we don't give them enough space to really explore their lives and the opportunities out there. We want to program everything for them. And and my teaching style has changed from the time I taught your class to the way I teach now. And a lot of that has also come from some training that I received at when I went to the University of Texas at Austin and worked there for about 4 years, I guess, and as a visiting professor. And I had another great person there, a department chair, that really allowed me to expand and go and do things. Like I went to Harvard. I spent I've forgotten how long I was there for a training session on case teaching methodology. And the reason they did that and paid all my expenses for me to go was we had a wonderful auditing professor that wanted to write auditing cases, and he wanted me to co-teach. And so while he was writing the textbook, I would teach one section of the class and he'd teach the other. And so it was, I have just had a lot of really wonderful mentors and experiences through my professional life.
Well, and, I think, and I know you agree just based on what you just said, but, I can't overstate as well the importance of having someone in your life in a professional capacity that can kind of help guide you and can be a sounding board. I want to jump back to you said that your teaching style has changed since I had you back in the early to mid 90s. So I want to ask you this. You came to Samford for the first time in 1993. That was my junior year. Our class were juniors at that point. Do you remember the first time that you walked through one of our classes into one of our classes at Samford? Do you remember what you said?
Unfortunately, I have been reminded of that, but I will let you tell the story. But I did not remember it until I think you told me.
Well, right, but I've told it before, but I'll say it again. And it may have been the first. So classes at Samford were either business classes were Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. So it was either the first or second day that you would walk through a class, room door at Samford. But we were all sitting there, and you came in. No, good morning. How you doing? I'm Dr. Guest. You came in, and I think you started talking before you even put your stuff on the desk. You said, "All right, guys, we're already behind. We got to get to work, so let's go." And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? But and that's a true story, by the way. You did do that, but that just that exemplifies your passion that you have and the energy that you have. And that's one of the things that I always think about when I think of you, is the fact that you have that passion for what you do. You have that passion for the students that you teach. You love what you do. And even though that was kind of it's kind of like having a bucket of cold water thrown on you when you're a junior at your very first higher level accounting class. The professor walks through the door and says, "All right, we're already behind." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and we hadn't even opened a book yet. So how can we be behind? But anyway, so I love to tell that story because I love to give people an idea about your passion and your energy. Now, so let me ask you this. You said that your style has changed. So how have you evolved over the years? And maybe even think before you came to Samford. I mean, maybe think about, when you were in the PhD program. I mean, how have you, I guess, I don't know, changed your teaching methods to kind of adapt with changing students and technology and all those things that go into it?
Well, what has happened when I guess when I was at Auburn in the tax program, we had I was did a lot of research in that program. And it was not about a professor standing up there and saying something near as much as it was about you go dig it out and look it up and figure it out. And I never will forget the first test I took under this one professor. And it was open book, all right. But guess what books it was?
Probably Internal Revenue Code. Is that what it was?
Five, Alan, different books on your desk of code and law. That's the books you had to work this test with. And, you go, and I'm supposed to know this? Kind of like you guys were that first day of class.
Right.
And, but one thing that through the years that has helped me in the classes I've taken, probably Auburn had the biggest impact on me in that, not my PhD program, in the fact that students should be challenged. And when I came to Samford, one thing that I found, and I spoke with someone, and that someone who was teaching accounting said, Samford students don't sit for the CPA exam. They can't pass the CPA exam. And I look at him and I go, why? Who said they couldn't? Well, they just don't blah, blah. And I said, where are they going to work? Oh, they just find a job. And I'm going, no, that is not the way students go to work. Nope. This is not going to work for Kay. So it was my mission. Samford was my mission field and you guys were bathed in fire.
Well, let me stop you right there, because I will say that my class, and it was a small class. I mean, we were, what do we have? Maybe 9, 12, something like that. It's not many at all. Now, the business school as a whole was bigger because they had different programs, but the accounting major was quite small back then. Nobody came to Samford to recruit as far as firms or businesses or anybody. And so the very first quote recruiting function event ever for accounting students was at your house at dinner. And I don't know
Mhm.
how you had to, I don't know how many business owners, CPA partners or whatever were there, but and I don't know how you had to, how you talked them into it and forced them to come to dinner at your house, but you did. And we were the beneficiaries. And I can tell you unequivocally that I would not have gotten my first job had it not been for you. And I know at least probably half or maybe even more of the students in that program at that time can say the same thing. And so I think again that just goes to your passion and the fact that you saw a problem and you were going to solve it. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that people love about you and students have loved about you over the years is that you don't see something or problem or something that needs to be solved and just sit back and say, well, too bad. You do something about it, right?
Yep. Well, I had been in large programs and I knew what the recruiting process was like, Alan, and I knew what it took. I mean, I took the CPA exam in the old days, some of these horror stories that when they, when you couldn't sit for one section at a time, we sat for all the sections at once. And so when I was at Baylor, I used to say they lined us up like cattle and they marched us to Fort Worth to the Civic Center, and we all sat at the same time for the CPA exam, every single one of us in our class. And it was my goal, as I always said, that cockeyed thing took so much time to study and was so hard. I didn't ever plan on taking it but once.
Right.
And I didn't. So I just, it was, and I've grown up with a mother. I grew up with a mother that was very strong and very determined she had many obstacles in her life and many obstacles in rearing her children. And we just learned to overcome. And if there was a problem, you just solved it because that's just what you did in life. But when I came to Samford and I was told that these students aren't smart enough, I'm going, what? They're as smart as any other students in the world. What are you talking about? So my goal was to get you guys employed because, I told the university, I said, what a travesty you do to students to say that they're going to pay this kind of tuition and they're going to get out of school and can't get a job and they can't pass the CPA exam when that's their license to their profession. What is going on here? That is not acceptable. That's just not an acceptable outcome. So we worked at it, and you guys, Ellen, let me tell you, your class worked. We What he may not have told anybody is that young man sitting right there should have a master's degree because they had to do 50 hours. They had to get all of the accounting credits in because I didn't know when they might sit for that exam, and they were going to be required to have all those hours to sit. So I'm going, nope, we're going to take all these courses. I had them going to school 12 months out of the year, didn't I, Alan? They went summers, fall, winter.
You did, and I will say this, and I don't admit that I was wrong many times, but you did when going through, that and what she's talking about is that we graduated that very first year that the Alabama Society instituted the 150-hour rule, where you had to have 150 hours to be able to sit for the exam, and so we were kind of on that first, the cusp of the new programs where they're 5-year programs now, right? And so you kind of come out with a master's degree or whatever. With that, we didn't have that, and so you told me, look, you just need to go on and you've taken all these classes, just go on and take the other 2 classes or whatever it was and get your master's degree. And I was like, I mean, I got this job, I'm tired of school, and so I didn't do it. And you were right, I was wrong. I've regretted it, for 25 years. And so but that just goes to show that that's what a good mentor and a good Advocate does is they try to position you to be the best that you can be and put you in the best position to be successful. And that's what you were doing with us. Not only did you have the first recruiting event at your house over dinner, you also uh, formed the first accounting advisory board where you got business leaders in Birmingham to sit on this advisory board for the school. And you also instituted the first accounting program awards banquet. And so you absolutely did more than probably anybody before and after really at Samford to advocate for the accounting students and program especially. And so I'm grateful for it. And the people who have come after me should be grateful. We are grateful because you really put the accounting program at Samford on the map. And so I do appreciate that.
Well, you guys have been so successful in your professional lives, Alan. It makes me so proud to be able, since I've come back to Samford this time, to nominate so many of you to receive the Outstanding Alumni Award for your work, because you have made inroads into the profession. And it's not all been in big four firms or big eight firms that, back years ago when I was going through the process, but it's been in becoming partners and really involved in the profession in the smaller firms, in the places where it really counts. And that's something that I think we in the accounting profession probably don't give enough emphasis to with our students, because what our students want to do is say, well, but I want a big four on my resume. But the problem many of them face is the work environment is very different between the two types of firms, So I really feel honored that people like you and Rob Pearson and Michael Wallace and Greg Huffstetler and Greg, who is in your class, is now partnered with E&Y in Chicago office in the tax area. And so, and Michael is partner in his own firm, just as you are, just as Rob is. So I think it's great accomplishments for my students. And I'm so proud of each of you and so glad that I've had the opportunity to have been a part of your lives.
Well, we appreciate it as well. And now for my listeners, I don't know if you can tell, but Dr. Guess has this wonderful ability, in my opinion, to be very blunt, honest, direct, matter of fact, but she does it in such an endearing way. And so it's just like she was telling those folks at Samford, this is unacceptable. I mean, Dr. Guess, she does not pull any punches when she gives you advice, when she tells you what she thinks, but at the same time, and I think it's a wonderful trait, because I think that we don't have enough of that, especially in work environments today. We're afraid to have those tough conversations and to be honest and to say the things that need to be said, and to make corrections when they need to be made. You don't have a problem with that, but you do it in a way that is, well, I mean, it's endearing, really. I mean, it doesn't come across as rude. It doesn't come across as berating. It's just it's kind of a matter of fact, and like you said, you tell it like it is, and either like it or don't. And I'll tell one more story. So again, we had classes on Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday at Samford. And one particular week, it just so happened we had everybody decided they were going to give a test on Thursday. Okay. So we had like a income tax test. We had probably a finance test and maybe a stats test or some statistics test or something like that. And so we were in your class kind of bemoaning the fact that, these professors were so unreasonable that they were giving all these tests at the same time. And why didn't they coordinate, and how are we supposed to get all this done? And we weren't necessarily asking you to do anything about it, but you were just kind of, observing and listening. And finally you said, look, guys, that's life. I mean, deal with it. And what are you going to do when you get out of college and you have two kids and they're both playing sports at different venues? Your, wife's sick, so you have to make dinner, and then the baby stays up all night because he got an ear infection, and you still have to give that presentation in the morning, So, I mean, that's life. Deal with it. Find a way to overcome it. And that kind of advice is exactly what I think people need more of today even. But yeah, so you have a great way of just kind of telling folks to deal with it and move on, and we do.
Well, I hope you do.
Let me ask you this. So you obviously have had great success and have a gift for what you do, which is impacting young lives and teaching young students, young adults to not only how to be good business people, but also how to be good human beings. What advice do you have for someone who may want to do exactly what you do? Do you have any words of wisdom to offer someone who may be thinking, well, okay, I may want to work in the world of academia someday and impact young lives? What would you tell that person?
Oh, it's strange you should ask that question because guess what, Alan? I've got a former student right now who will be entering the PhD program at Texas A&M, and she was accepted at so many really high caliber schools. And through the whole process, it's been a um, more of a me listening and her telling about her interviews, her processes, and part of it, it started out when she told me that she wanted to teach. That I just wanted to be sure that I didn't influence her too much, that it was her decision and that it was something she was going to have a passion for. But her mother's in education. So I think that probably has an influence on her. But it's just, and I told her there's some key things you need to look at in any PhD program. And these are the key factors that you want to be sure you look at. And so we have been through this process and written lots of letters and just, I think there's two parts to teaching that, or to this profession, that students don't see. They only see half the picture. Half that picture is teaching. But I think that what they don't understand is a PhD program does not teach you how to teach. That's not what the purpose of a PhD program is. You have to learn that through your mentors or through the School of Education, one or the other, or doing research in that area. But the other side of it is that you have to know that you're going to spend a lot of time outside the classroom because there's something called tenure and promotion. And they don't do tenure and promotion based on your teaching at large universities. And I've been at several universities, which has also been a great advantage to me, I think, rather than being at just one. But they want you to do high level research. So, depending on what school you go to and what school you accept a job in, is going to depend on the level of research that they will accept. And you will spend, right now, I've got a paper that I've got to do a revise and resubmit on. And what that means is I have gotten comments back from readers of that paper at the journal and from the journal editor. Now I have to go in and rewrite. And this is kind of like writing, I don't know that you guys did anything like this in your undergrad program, but it would be like writing a giant thesis, if you will. And it's required for tenure and promotion that you have X number of these publications, and they have to be in different levels of journals. So our journals are rated, and all journals are not acceptable to all schools. So it's a huge process, and that's the side of education that students know nothing about until they get ready to start this pursuit of a PhD program. And then, we have to sit down and have this conversation of, wait just a minute. I need you to understand exactly what you're signing up for. And it's not walking in the classroom. That isn't, for most universities, not particularly Samford, but for most universities, teaching is only about maybe a fourth of your evaluation for tenure and promotion. And then you've got, depending on what kind of school you're in, you've got where you would write for research grants, where you would do grants for different things, like me being able to go to Harvard for weeks of training at a time and not being in the classroom during that time period, and having then to do an evaluation of the conference. The other great thing about being in my profession is all of the exposure I have to the professionals. Yeah. So we have big conferences, and where we have the opportunity to meet many different people from all over the country. So you find that the accounting faculty is a very small nucleus of people. So you can get to know people in schools all over the world and the nation, and you'll see them every year at the conference. And that'll be the only time you get together, but you'll get together and have dinner, at that conference. Yeah, so right. It's kind of a neat thing, because you get to exchange ideas and teaching methodologies and things that work in your classroom. And I've done, a lot of writing and research, which has been very, very good for my career, and won many awards for it. But it's a different world. That's a whole different side of education than what students see.
Right. And I, I think this of any level of educator, really, but I mean, it's really a calling. And I think that the key in what you just said is you have to have, if you think you want to pursue this avenue, then you've got to have a passion, because it is a lot of work. It's, it's not something that just happens. You have to be dedicated to it. And I know that you have been for many, many years. I will say this. So you were at Samford from 1993 to 1997, the first time. When you told me that you were moving back to Texas, I was devastated, not just because you were going to be in Texas, but because I felt bad for the university, because it was such a big loss to Samford. But I understood you had, your mom was out there and you had to go and kind of be with her, which was exactly what you needed to do. Came back to Samford in 2012. I was ecstatic when you called and told me that you were coming back. Been there ever since, but you're retiring at the end of the summer. Another great loss for the university for sure. But so what's next for you? I mean, you're moving back to Texas. So I'm gonna have to go to Texas at some point to see the new digs, but you're moving back to Texas. What's the next season of your life look like, you think?
Well, it just so happened I had a investor friend said, we were talking about investments. And right now I'm teaching a personal finance class, which is really outside of accounting, but very much accounting, in the same venue, but just not CPA type accounting. Right. But he said, Kay, I wish all of my clients understood investing and living like you do. And I said, well, I don't understand why everybody doesn't understand that. I don't know why anybody would have to be taught that. But it's very much like the idea that people don't understand you can't save and spend the same dollar.
Well, I mean, that's true. It's a pretty simple concept.
But, that's a pretty simple concept. I'm going, hey, that's all they need to know. And he said, no. So I have, I have worked actually with my daughter on this of financial literacy. People are not financially literate. They don't understand there needs to be a real commitment to spending and knowing where you spend your money. People don't want to know where they spend their money. Right. They don't want accountability. Right, I'm telling you, it's like my students. But, and so I hope to do some work in the financial literacy area. I would do it voluntarily, and I do some volunteer work with my church in the summer. I've been on several mission trips, and I hope to continue to do work like that and work in my church, and just spend a lot of time under a lot less pressure, Alan. How about that? But
There's nothing wrong with that.
that is, I don't have a real clear plan. And I love to cook. And so I'm always saying I'm going to go take some real cooking classes. I've never had a real cooking class in my life. It's in my kitchen. That's my class.
Right.
But, and I love to cook. So it's, I hope to be able to expand some knowledge of that type. And I sew all the time. I've been a seamstress, I feel like, since I was born, but not quite that long. I made my first dress when I was 12.
Oh, wow.
So I've been sewing ever since. And so there's some specialty things I can't do in sewing that I would like to take some classes and learn. So it's going to be a different world for me.
Well, I have no doubt that whoever you cross paths with will be the beneficiary of your passion and your knowledge and just your gosh, I don't know, just your determination, I guess is the best way to put it. We've got to wrap up, and I didn't even get to probably half of what I had on my list to talk about. But let me ask you one question before we leave. So you've had the opportunity to really impact a lot of lives over the course of your teaching career. I've got 2 children at Auburn, a junior and a freshman. So what's the one piece of advice that you would, if all right, let me put it this way. So if when you left Samford at the end of the summer, you could go and write one message or one piece of advice on a whiteboard that every business student would see as they walked in that classroom from now on. I mean, it's something that would be there. They would just leave up there in perpetuity. What would that advice be?
Well, I think that I would tell students, learn to define problems and then solve them without a guide. Our students don't think. They haven't been taught to think. Our educational system has taken that great privilege away from them, the way we educate. So they don't have to think anymore. All they want are answers. Alan, and I know, and Carrie knows, there are no answer books in life. There's just a lot of questions and a lot of problems, and you need to learn how to solve them.
That goes right back to what you told us that day that we were having those discussions about the 3 tests on Thursday, right? Yep. Deal with it. You're right. I mean, there's no roadmap for life, but I'll tell you what, you have navigated yours wonderfully.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avisogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.